Let me start this video with a question most men are too afraid to answer honestly. What really happens when you stop chasing her? Not when you're busy, not when you're pretending, but when you've genuinely lost interest, when your energy shifts and she can feel it in her bones. Most men never talk about this because they've been conditioned to believe women hold all the power in relationships. But here's the controversial truth. The moment you pull back, the entire dynamic changes, and her reaction will tell you everything you need to know about her, about yourself, and about the connection you thought you had. Think about it. Most men live their lives in silent desperation, constantly bending over backward to impress women, to hold their attention, to keep them from leaving. They overthink texts, overgive their time, and over-explain themselves just to stay in her good graces. But rarely do they stop and ask, what happens when the game flips? What happens when you no longer care whether she calls back, whether she's impressed, whether she stays or leaves? I'll tell you what happens. Her reaction will reveal truths about human nature that most men ignore their entire lives. Now, let's get uncomfortable for a second, because if you're a man listening to this, there's a good chance you've been guilty of believing the myth that women are always the prize, and men must fight endlessly to win them over. Society drills this into your head. Movies, music, even social media push the idea that your worth as a man comes from how well you can keep her attention. And yet, here's the twist. The moment you lose interest, she suddenly sees you differently. Sometimes she panics. Sometimes she gets angry. Sometimes she becomes more curious about you than ever before. And sometimes, let's be real, she doesn't care at all. Either way, her reaction is powerful, and it's a mirror that reflects back your entire relationship dynamic. Here's what most men don't realize. Interest is energy. You've been pouring it into her like water into a glass. Constant texts, constant validation, constant effort. And when that water suddenly stops flowing, she notices immediately. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to shifts in attention. She may not be able to explain it in words, but she feels it deep inside. Your absence is louder than your presence ever was. That silence, that lack of pursuit, that sudden detachment, it shakes her. And how she responds to that shake tells you more about her character and her true feelings than anything she's ever said when things were comfortable. Let's make this even more controversial. Sometimes, the woman who told you she wasn't looking for anything serious suddenly changes her tune when she feels your attention fading. The same woman who swore she needed space suddenly wants to know what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're not as available as before. Why? Because interest lost is value revealed. When you stop chasing, you create space. And in that space, she has to confront something terrifying. Maybe she wasn't as important in your world as she thought she was. That realization flips the script, and her reaction exposes the truth. But let me be clear, this isn't about manipulation. Too many men hear this and think, oh, so I should just play games, pretend I don't care, and she'll come running back. Wrong. That's not real power. That's desperation in disguise. I'm talking about genuine loss of interest. When you've matured enough to know your worth, when you've outgrown her drama, when you finally see that you don't have to prove yourself just to keep someone around, that's when the magic happens. That's when her mask slips. And trust me, the mask always slips. This video isn't about bashing women. It's about teaching men to wake up, to pay attention, and to stop living in fear of losing her. Because here's the truth you need to swallow. The moment you lose interest, she reacts not just to you, but to the image of herself that she held in your eyes. Your attention was her validation. Your pursuit was her comfort. And when that vanishes, she either reveals her insecurities, her pride, or her genuine care for you. Whatever the case, You finally get to see the unfiltered version of who she is. So ask yourself, are you willing to look at the truth when it presents itself? Because most men aren't. They'd rather chase endlessly than face the uncomfortable reality that maybe she never valued them in the first place, or worse, that she only valued the chase. But if you're ready to stop running in circles, if you're ready to see how a woman truly responds when you step back, then this video is for you. Because once you understand her reaction, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. One of the biggest shocks men experience in relationships is this. The moment you stop feeding her constant attention, she feels it immediately. And many times, she panics. Now, let's make something clear. This panic isn't always dramatic, loud, or even visible to outsiders. Sometimes it shows up in very subtle ways. A sudden change in her tone, a different level of curiosity about your day, or even irritation about things she never cared about before. Why? Because attention is energy, and when it disappears, it shakes her world. Women are extremely sensitive to shifts in behaviour. If you've been the type of man who calls every morning, checks in throughout the day, and is always available to hang out at a moment's notice, then suddenly that rhythm breaks. She notices faster than you think, and her reaction is not really about you. It's about the loss of security she felt in your consistent interest. Here's where it gets controversial. A lot of men believe women panic because they love you deeply or because they're afraid of losing the relationship. Sometimes, yes, that's true. But many times, the panic comes from something else. The loss of power. See, as long as you were chasing, she knew exactly where you stood. She had control. But when your attention fades, she loses that certainty. And that's what really drives the sudden shift. Think about it. If you're always running after her, she never has to question her place in your life. She knows she's at the center. But when you stop, even without saying a word, it forces her to wonder, wait, did something change? Am I not as important as I thought? Did he find someone else? Did I misjudge my influence over him? Those questions spin in her mind, and the result is often panic disguised as something else. Maybe sudden jealousy, sudden interest, or sudden irritation. Let me give you something real to picture. Imagine a man who used to text his girlfriend good morning every single day without fail. She got so used to it that she didn't even respond excitedly anymore. It was just expected. Then, one week, he gets busy. He doesn't send that message first thing in the morning. She notices. At first, she brushes it off, but the next day, he doesn't send it either. By day 3, her mind is racing. She starts checking her phone more often. She wonders what's going on. Suddenly, the man she was comfortable ignoring has her full attention again. Not because he did anything dramatic, but because his energy shifted. That's how powerful lost attention is. It creates space in her mind that she has to fill with questions. And those questions can lead to panic. Now, here's the hard truth men need to understand. If she only panics when your attention is gone, but didn't value you while she had it, then you've learned something important. You've learned that her comfort came from the chase, not the connection. That's a reality many men don't want to face, because it forces them to admit that they were giving more than they were receiving. But here's the flip side. Sometimes her panic reveals that she really does care. She just got too comfortable. Losing your constant pursuit reminds her that nothing is guaranteed, and it pulls her out of that comfort zone. In this case, her panic can wake her up and make her appreciate you more. The key is this: don't mistake panic for love. They're not the same thing. Love is consistent, steady, and present. Whether you text her 10 times a day or once a week, panic, on the other hand, is an emotional reaction to uncertainty. It's about her, not you, It's about the loss of control, not the presence of affection. Most men never separate the two. They get excited when a woman suddenly blows up their phone after they stop calling, thinking, wow, she must really love me. But what's really happening is she's reacting to the absence of attention she took for granted, and that difference is everything. So, what's the lesson here? As a man, you need to observe carefully. When your attention dies down, whether because you're genuinely busy, you're losing interest, or you're focusing on yourself, watch how she reacts. Does she panic in a way that feels possessive, controlling, or insecure? Or does she show up with genuine care, wanting to reconnect in a healthy way? Her reaction will tell you exactly what she valued in the first place. And remember, your value as a man isn't tied to how much attention you give away. In fact, the less desperate you are to keep feeding someone who doesn't truly appreciate you, the more you stand in your power. The panic you see from her side is just proof that your energy mattered more than you realized. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, one of the first things she'll do is test your confidence. This is human nature. When someone feels your energy shifting, they want to know if it's real, if it's lasting, and, most importantly, if you're strong enough to stand by it. This is where most men fail because deep down, many aren't as confident as they appear to be. See, attention is a currency. While you were giving it freely, she never had to question where you stood. But once it dries up, curiosity kicks in, and with it comes a test. She might not even be fully aware she's doing it, but her behavior starts poking at your sense of self-worth. She wants to see, are you truly confident without her attention? Or are you pretending, waiting for her to pull you back in? This is the part that separates men who know their value from men who only talk about it. If your confidence was built on her validation, it crumbles the moment she pulls away or challenges you. But if your confidence comes from within, from your focus, your goals, your self-respect, then her test doesn't shake you. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove yourself. You simply stand where you are. And trust me, that silence, that calmness, that unbothered energy, it says more than 1,000 words ever could. Let's make this real and relatable. Think about a time when someone questioned your worth, not directly, but in subtle ways. Maybe by giving you less attention, by asking questions that felt a little sharp, or by acting like they weren't impressed anymore. How did you react? Did you scramble to prove yourself? Or did you stay grounded, knowing that nothing about your worth had changed? That's exactly the same dynamic here. A woman sensing your lack of interest wants to know if you can handle the discomfort without falling apart. Here's where it gets controversial. Most men believe confidence is loud. They think it's about flexing, proving, showing strength at every turn. But in reality, the greatest confidence shows up in restraint. It's the ability to hold your ground without trying to force someone else to see your value. When you're calm under pressure, when you don't overreact, when you don't feel the need to chase just to prove you still matter, that's when she sees your true strength. And this matters more than you think. Because deep down, people are drawn to certainty. If you're a man who loses his balance the moment she tests you, then what you're really showing her is that your confidence was fragile all along. But if you stay steady, you become magnetic. You don't have to convince her of anything. She feels it. And once she feels it, the respect either grows or it vanishes. Either way, you've exposed the truth. Now, here's the part most men avoid admitting. These tests are uncomfortable. They force you to look at yourself because if you panic, if you get angry, if you beg for her attention back, it reveals that your self-image is tied to her opinion. And once you see that clearly, you realize why so many relationships fail. The man was never really grounded in himself. He was grounded in her reaction to him. But let's flip this. Imagine the power you hold when her tests no longer control you. When she questions your silence and you simply smile. When she pulls back her energy and you don't chase. When she tries to spark jealousy and you don't flinch. That's real power. Not because you're trying to manipulate her, but because you've mastered yourself. You're no longer living for external approval. You're living from a place of inner certainty. Relatable. Absolutely. Every man has felt that pull, the urge to react, the urge to prove, the urge to explain himself. But the moment you stop giving in to that urge, you elevate yourself. You stop playing her game and you start playing life at a higher level. Confidence isn't about controlling her. It's about controlling yourself. So, here's the lesson. When she tests your confidence after you've lost interest, don't get angry. Don't get defensive. And don't crumble. Just observe. Notice what's happening. Notice how her behavior shifts when she sees you're not easily moved. That's where you win. Not in the noise, but in the silence. Not in proving, but in being. And once you get this, you'll realize something life-changing. Her reaction doesn't define you. Your reaction defines you. And that, my friend, is what separates men who lead their lives from men who are led by them. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, one of the most revealing moments comes next. She decides if you were ever her priority or if you were just an option she kept around. And this part stings because it doesn't just expose her, it exposes you. Here's the truth most men don't like to face. Too many of you allow yourselves to be treated like an option. You stay available no matter how little she invests. You accept breadcrumbs of attention and call it love. You bend your entire schedule around her while she treats you like a backup plan. And then, when you finally lose interest, that's when you see the truth. That's when her reaction makes it clear. Either she valued you or she never really did. This is controversial, but it needs to be said. Men complain about women playing games, but many men are the ones setting themselves up for disappointment. You give away your time, your energy, and your attention without ever demanding respect. You let her keep you on the sidelines, waiting for a chance instead of standing firm in your own worth. And then, when she moves on, you feel betrayed. But the real betrayal is that you betrayed yourself first by not setting the standard. Now, when she feels you pulling away, that's the moment of truth. If you are just an option, her reaction will be cold. She'll let you fade out of her life without much resistance. It hurts, but it's honest. On the other hand, if you are truly valuable to her, that's when she starts fighting harder to keep your presence. The difference between the two reactions is night and day, and it's in those moments you finally see what your place really was. But let's pause here because too many men fall into victim mode. They get angry at women for treating them like options, but they ignore their own role in the story. The harsh truth is this: she can only treat you like an option if you allow it. If you had boundaries, if you had self-respect, if you had the courage to walk away earlier, you wouldn't be in that position. Instead, most men ignore the red flags, tolerate the bare minimum, and convince themselves that things will change. That's not love. That's fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of facing the fact that you deserve more. Here's where I need you to wake up. Stop being afraid of losing her. The more you cling to someone who doesn't truly value you, the more you shrink as a man. You start doubting yourself, questioning your worth, and begging for validation that should never have been in someone else's hands to begin with. If she treated you like an option, it's not just about her. It's a reflection of how little you demanded for yourself. This doesn't mean you should be bitter. In fact, bitterness is the worst reaction. The point isn't to hate her for making a choice. The point is to learn from it. To recognize that from now on, you won't allow yourself to be in the same position. That you'll respect yourself enough to walk away before you ever get downgraded to just an option. And here's something every man needs to hear. Not every woman will value you. And that's okay. You don't need to win over everyone. What matters is finding the ones who genuinely respect you and cutting ties with those who don't. If you're stuck chasing someone who only keeps you around for convenience, you're wasting energy that could be building your life, your mission, your future. So, when she decides if you are just an option, don't panic, don't beg, and don't try to prove your worth. Observe, accept what's revealed, and then make the choice to never accept less than respect again. Because if you don't, you'll repeat the cycle over and over, blaming women for what you allowed. This is the part where men either grow up or stay stuck. If you take it personally and sink into self-pity, you'll keep being the backup guy, the one she calls when she's bored. But if you wake up, if you learn the lesson, you'll realize something powerful. Being treated like an option once is enough. After that, you set your standards so high that no one can ever put you in that category again. So, let me say it plainly. Stop being the man who tolerates disrespect because you're afraid to lose someone. Lose her if you must, but don't lose yourself. Here's the controversial truth. Most men won't admit out loud. If a woman ever made you feel like your value depended on her attention, then you've been doing life backwards. Most men spend years chasing someone who isn't invested in them, giving energy that isn't returned, and pretending that tolerance equals love. That's not love. That's desperation. And the harsh reality is, if you keep doing this, no amount of charm, money, or status will ever change the way she treats you. Let that sink in for a moment. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it may feel like I'm being harsh, but the truth is supposed to be uncomfortable sometimes. And this is one of those moments. If you've been waiting for her to appreciate you, to notice your worth, to chase you back, stop. You're living in a lie. You're letting her energy dictate your self-esteem, and that's the one thing no man should ever allow. Think about all the messages, calls, and efforts you've put in, only to see her act distant, distracted, or disinterested. Think about the times you adjusted your life around her schedule, her moods, her whims. Think about the countless times you convinced yourself it was okay to settle for crumbs because you feared losing her. Now ask yourself, was it ever worth it? Or were you just training yourself to accept less than you deserve? That's the kind of wake-up call most men avoid. Here's the bold statement I need you to hear. If she didn't panic, didn't care, or didn't respect you when your interest faded, then she never truly valued you. And the only person to blame for staying in that cycle is you. It's controversial because society tells men to always blame women for playing games or being hard to read. But the truth is, the problem isn't always her. It's that too many men hand over their power willingly and then act surprised when they're treated like an option. Wake up. That stops. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about your own experiences. How many times did you feel anxious because she wasn't texting back? How many times did you bend over backward to impress her? How many times did you ignore red flags because you were afraid of losing her? These moments are lessons in disguise. They reveal the patterns you've been repeating, the ways you've undervalued yourself, and the exact behaviours that must change if you want to stop being used as a backup plan. Here's the actionable truth. Respect starts with you. You don't need to yell, argue, or manipulate to make her notice your worth. You simply stop chasing what isn't yours. You hold your boundaries. You focus on your life, your goals, and your energy. And the reaction you get, panic, attention, indifference, is just feedback, not validation. The moment you internalize this, you stop being a man who begs for attention and start being a man who commands it naturally. I want this to be personal. I want to connect with you because I know exactly what it feels like to give your energy to someone who doesn't match it. And I also know what it feels like to step back, hold your ground, and watch the truth reveal itself. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It can even be painful. But it's necessary if you're serious about building confidence, self-respect, and relationships that actually honor your worth. So, here's what I want you to do. Comment below on your experiences. Tell me what happened the last time you lost interest or stepped back in a relationship. I will personally read your comments and reach out where I can because this isn't just a video. It's a conversation. It's about understanding the patterns, learning from them, and rising above them. The truth is, the men who grow are the ones who face the hard realities, admit their own mistakes, and refuse to repeat them. Let me leave you with this final, very controversial thought. Most men waste their lives chasing validation from women who will never see their true worth. Until you stop, you're trapped in the very cycle you complain about. If that hits too close to home, good. Let it, because awareness is the first step to change. Start seeing the truth. Start holding your ground. And start valuing yourself enough that no one, absolutely no one, can treat you like an option again. Comment your experiences below. Let's talk. Let's break the cycle together. This isn't just theory, it's real life. And if you're ready to wake up and reclaim your power, this is the place to start.